Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're doing a deep dive into something that literally haunts all of us at some point, the fascinating, and let's be honest, incredibly frustrating science of our own minds. We're going to unpack the neuroscience of overthinking, and more importantly, how to actually break the loop. Think of this as a scientific breakdown of a painfully relatable problem. So, picture this. I know you've been here. It's 2 a.m. The room is pitch black, and suddenly, out of nowhere, your brain decides to replay a single, throwaway line you said to your boss yesterday. Did they take it the wrong way? Did I sound like a complete idiot? What's going to happen at the meeting tomorrow? One thought triggers another, then a third, and before you know it, 2 hours have just vanished. Sleep is totally ruined, and you haven't actually solved anything. You're just trapped in this endless, exhausting loop of unhelpful thoughts. Well, let's dive right in. If that late-night spiral sounds all too familiar, you're definitely in the majority. According to recent surveys, a whopping 73% of young adults regularly report struggling with overthinking. So right off the bat, it's not just you. This isn't some rare personality defect or a character flaw. It's a neurological loop that is literally running inside your brain. It's a modern-day pattern, and to break it, we really need to understand the science behind it. First things first, we need to clear up a major misconception. There is a massive biological difference between actual problem solving and overthinking. When you're thinking to solve a problem, your brain moves in a linear direction, right? It analyzes, it plans, and it reaches a concrete decision. That's problem solving. But overthinking, that's completely circular. Your brain just spins its wheels, analyzing the exact same situation over and over again, but going absolutely nowhere. Psychologists actually call this loop worry when it's about the future and rumination when it's about the past. And get this, the word rumination comes from a Latin root that literally means a cow chewing its cud. I mean, think about that. Gross, but absolutely perfect imagery. Your brain is essentially just chewing on the same thought over and over again without ever actually digesting it. So why exactly does our brain sabotage us like this? Let's pop the hood on your brain and look at the actual biological hardware to see what's misfiring. There's a very specific 3-step neurological loop that gets triggered the moment we start to spiral. Here's how the chain reaction plays out. Step 1, your amygdala, which is your brain's emotional alarm center, detects a threat. Now, evolutionarily, this was built for tigers and predators, but today it treats an awkward WhatsApp text exactly like a tiger attack. The alarm goes off. Then, step 2, your prefrontal cortex, the rational part of your brain that normally acts as the brakes to calm you down, gets completely weakened by stress. The brakes basically fail. And that leads to step 3, where a very specific network in your brain just grabs the steering wheel. That steering wheel gets handed over to what we call the default mode network, or the DMN. This network fires up whenever your brain isn't focused on an active task. You know, like when you're just lying there staring at the ceiling. Functional MRI studies show that chronic overthinkers have hyperactivity in this exact network, and the DMN absolutely loves self-referential thoughts. When it's idle, its default mode is to focus entirely on me, myself, and I. It endlessly processes things like, what did I do, or what is everyone going to think of me? This right here is your overthinking engine. And let's be incredibly clear about something. This is not just in your head. Because this loop keeps your sympathetic nervous system continuously activated, your body is just constantly flooded with cortisol and adrenaline. That takes a massive physical toll. Overthinkers frequently deal with severe muscle tension, disturbed digestion, chronic fatigue, and brutal headaches. Your physical body is literally carrying the heavy burden of your brain's false alarms. So why on earth does the brain let this painful cycle continue? Well, it all comes down to a fascinating psychological paradox, the illusion of control. Your brain is essentially tricking itself. It thinks, hey, if I just think about this enough times, I can predict every single outcome and avoid future mistakes. It genuinely believes that worrying provides safety. But the research shows the exact opposite. The more you try to control uncertainty through overthinking, the more anxious you actually feel. The brain learns that worrying equals safety, which just locks that vicious cycle in even tighter. And things actually get worse before they get better. Psychologist Daniel Wegner introduced a concept called the ironic process theory. He found that the more aggressively you try to suppress a thought, like when you forcefully tell yourself, okay, just stop thinking about it, that thought comes back way louder. You literally cannot forcefully push overthinking away. It will just rebound with a vengeance. So if we can't force these thoughts away, how do we actually override this system? Fortunately, neuroplasticity is very real. What has been learned can absolutely be unlearned. Let's open up the user manual for your brain and go through 7 actionable, evidence-based techniques that will help you break this cycle, both physically and mentally. Technique number 1 is elegantly simple. Name it to tame it. The second you feel that loop starting, just say out loud or in your head, "This is overthinking." By simply giving the thought a label, you instantly create mental distance. You're stepping outside the thought to observe it. This immediately slows down that default mode network engine we just talked about. Next, we tap into some cognitive behavioral therapy methods. Technique 2 is scheduling worry time. Set a fixed 15-minute slot every single evening. When a worry pops up in the middle of the afternoon, tell your brain, "Hey, we're going to handle this at 7 p.m. and write it down." This actually teaches your brain patience. Then, when your worry time arrives, use technique 3, cognitive reframing. Interrogate those worst-case scenario thoughts like a best friend would. Ask yourself, what is the actual evidence against this thought? Is there a more realistic alternative explanation here? Now, what if the spiral is super intense and you need immediate relief? That brings us to technique 4, the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding technique. You use your 5 senses to literally yank your brain out of the past or future and back into the present. Identify 5 things you can see, 4 things you can physically feel, 3 things you can hear, 2 you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. This physically grounds your neurological activity right back into the present moment. Technique 5 pushes us directly into action. Backed by a famous 2002 study, this is called implementation intention. You create a pre-plan. If X thought happens, I will do Y action. For example, if I start worrying about the presentation, I'll spend exactly 10 minutes working on the slides. And technique 6 pairs perfectly with this, micro-action. Your brain can really only focus well on one thing at a time. Replacing an idle looping thought with an immediate, concrete, tiny step forces your brain out of that self-focused default mode network and into active problem solving. Technique 7 is mindfulness. And look, we're not just talking about relaxation here. We are talking about changing brain chemistry. Harvard fMRI research has proven that just 5 to 10 minutes of mindfulness, like paying deep attention to your breathing or even the physical sensation of holding your coffee cup, visibly lowers the activity in your default mode network. It physically quiets down the exact engine causing your overthinking. And of course, we absolutely cannot ignore raw biology. Your lifestyle is your baseline defense. Sleep is the very thing that repairs your prefrontal cortex. It literally fixes the brakes that stop the amygdala's false alarms. Lack of sleep means no brakes. Conversely, just taking a brisk 10-minute walk actively lowers the cortisol and stress hormones circulating in your body and improves your cognitive flexibility. These habits build up your fundamental biological resilience. It's also incredibly vital to recognize when to bring in an expert. If you've consistently applied these self-help techniques for 2 to 3 weeks and you're seeing zero progress, or if your sleep is severely disrupted, or if this looping is negatively impacting your daily life and relationships, then it's time to seek professional help from a CBT therapist. Chronic looping can sometimes be a symptom of anxiety disorders or OCD, which really require expert guidance to untangle effectively. To bring all of this together, I want you to remember one fundamental truth. Overthinking is not a character flaw. It is simply a survival mechanism that is misfiring in our modern world. Your brain is just trying to protect you, but it's using a really outdated alarm system. It's a learned biological pattern, and with the toolkit we've explored today, it can absolutely be unlearned. I hope this explainer helped you understand your own mind a bit better, and that you now have concrete steps to reclaim your peace. The next time you find yourself caught in a loop, start with step 1. Just say, "This is overthinking." Before we wrap up, I'll leave you with a quick question to reflect on. What is your biggest overthinking trigger? Take a moment to identify it, because naming that trigger is the very first step to dismantling the loop. Keep learning, keep observing your mind, and I'll catch you in the next deep dive.